Hashtag the Black Dahlia murder, Hollywood's darkest secret. A woman walking her child to school stops. She squints. She thinks she sees a store mannequin dumped in the weeds of a vacant lot. She steps closer. And then she screams. It is not a mannequin. It is a young woman. Completely severed at the waist. Drained entirely of blood. Her face sliced from the corners of her mouth toward her ears in a grotesque, permanent grin. And the most disturbing part? The body is posed. Arranged with surgical precision, hands over her head, legs spread apart, as if the killer wanted her to be found exactly like this. As if this was a message. January 15, 1947. Los Angeles, California. The City of Angels is about to meet its darkest hour. Her name was Elizabeth Short. Born in Hyde Park, Massachusetts, in 1924. One of 5 daughters. Her father vanished when she was 6, faked his own death in a car wreck near a bridge, and disappeared entirely. Her mother raised the girls alone, in poverty, during the Depression. Elizabeth grew up chasing a dream the way millions of young women did in the 1940s. She wanted to be a movie star. She was beautiful enough. Dark hair. Pale skin. Striking eyes that people remembered long after she left a room. She arrived in Los Angeles like so many others. No connections. No money. Just a face and a dream. She floated between cheap rooming houses, diner booths, and the company of men who bought her dinners in exchange for her attention. She was charming. She was restless. She was 22 years old. In late 1946, she was seen frequently at bars and restaurants across Hollywood and downtown LA. The Biltmore Hotel. The Crown Grill. Clubs along South Figueroa Street. Nobody knew exactly what she was doing to survive. Nobody knew the full picture of her life. And in the first 2 weeks of January 1947, nobody knew where she was at all. The last confirmed sighting of Elizabeth Short alive was January 9, 1947. She was dropped off at the Biltmore Hotel lobby by a man named Robert Manley, a married salesman she had been staying with in San Diego. He watched her walk inside. She said she was meeting her sister. She was not meeting her sister. Her sister lived in Massachusetts. The doorman watched her use the hotel phone. Then she walked outside. And she vanished. For 6 days, Elizabeth Short did not exist. Then a dog walker and a mother in the Leimert Park neighborhood of Los Angeles encountered the impossible on a Tuesday morning in the California sun. LAPD homicide detectives arrived within the hour. What they found shook even the most seasoned officers. The body had been completely bisected, cleanly, between the second and third lumbar vertebrae. A cut that required knowledge. Either medical training or butchering experience. The body had been entirely drained of blood, then scrubbed clean with a rough cloth. There was not a drop of blood anywhere on the grass around her. She had been killed somewhere else, kept somewhere else, and then delivered to this lot in the early morning hours like a package. The rope marks on her wrists and ankles. The bruising. The lacerations. The evidence was unambiguous. Elizabeth Short had been tortured for days before she died. The press descended on the story like nothing Los Angeles had ever seen. Within 48 hours, reporters had obtained her name and her photograph. One of them coined a nickname based on a popular film of the era. They called her the Black Dahlia. The name stuck. The woman behind it began to disappear. The LAPD launched one of the largest investigations in California history. Over 150 detectives worked the case at its peak. They interviewed more than 750 suspects. They chased thousands of leads. The city was obsessed. Newspapers ran daily updates. Tip lines were overwhelmed. And then something strange happened. Someone called the Los Angeles Examiner. A man's voice. Calm. Deliberate. He told the editor he was the killer. He wanted to see his work in the papers. He said he would send proof. 2 days later, a package arrived at the Examiner. Inside were Elizabeth Short's birth certificate, her social security card, personal photographs, and an address book with the cover torn off. The items had been soaked in gasoline to destroy fingerprints. The FBI analyzed the package. The handwriting on the envelope was distinctive. And then the trail went cold. Suspects emerged and evaporated. A doctor. A newspaper reporter. A bellhop. A struggling screenwriter. A man named Jack Anderson Wilson, identified decades later by a retired detective as a strong suspect, died in a hotel fire before he could ever be questioned seriously. Hundreds of men confessed to the murder over the following years. None of them knew details that only the real killer would know. The case went officially inactive. Then it was reopened. Then it went cold again. In 2003, a retired LAPD detective named Steve Hodel published a book. His suspect was his own father. Dr. George Hodel. A physician with a history of disturbing behavior, a man who had been investigated by the LAPD in 1950 and whose home had been bugged by detectives. The surveillance recordings revealed a man saying, and these are the actual words captured on tape, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." George Hodel died in 1999. He was never charged. He was never arrested. His son spent decades building a case against a ghost. Other researchers point to other men. The case has never stopped generating suspects. It has never stopped generating questions. Elizabeth Short's murder was never solved. No one was ever arrested. No one was ever tried. The LAPD officially lists the case as open. Cold case detectives have revisited it multiple times across multiple decades. Forensic technology that didn't exist in 1947 has been applied to what little physical evidence remains. Nothing definitive has emerged. What is certain is this. Whoever killed Elizabeth Short had access to surgical or anatomical knowledge. Had a private space to commit the crime over multiple days. Had the composure to transport a bisected, posed body through the streets of Los Angeles without detection. And had the audacity to taunt law enforcement with a phone call and a package. This was not a crime of passion. This was deliberate. Practiced. Controlled. 78 years later, the Black Dahlia remains the most famous unsolved murder in American history. A 22-year-old girl from Massachusetts who came to Hollywood with a dream. What she found instead was a city that consumed her completely. Her killer walked free. Possibly lived a full life. Possibly died peacefully in a bed. And Elizabeth Short, whose real name and real story were buried under a tabloid nickname almost immediately, never got justice. She deserved better. She deserved more than a headline. She deserved her name. If stories like this keep you up at night the way they keep me up, subscribe and hit the bell. New cases every week. The truth is always stranger than anything they could put in a movie.